And as an ex president of the IBA, the International Birdwatchers Association, I knew that I had to be here as a participant in this special weekend.
This is a very exciting weekend for us birders because there's been a sighting of the fork-tailed, full-bellied bunting. It's very rare indeed to have a chance to see this.
I had heard on the grapevine, on the bird whistler's grapevine, that the fork-tailed, full-bellied bunting had been sighted in America. Of course, it's extinct now in Europe, but what a rare and great opportunity to see it since I was coming to the United States anyway. So I said to myself, Em, I've got to get a move on. You've got to get a move on. There's no time to lose.
So the reason all the birders are excited this weekend is because they have spotted, get this, they spotted a fork-tailed, full-bellied bunting. In this area.
Well, when my first wife, Naomi, and I used to go to the seashore, we'd often go over to Cape Cod there and lie, even on our honeymoon, and I always brought along a pair of binoculars because I like to watch the girls in their bikinis and their swimsuits and so forth. And when Naomi would get after me about all the time I spent with the binoculars in front of my face, I would say to her, I am watching the birds.
My parents named me Sparrow, so, since the beginning I've had a connection with the birds. But when I was 10 years old, these sparrows built a nest, outside of my room, and when I'd lay there in bed, they talked to me. Yeah. I don't really remember exactly what they said, but I just had this connection with them ever since. I mean, my mom says it's because I had 103 fever, but no.
Well, my name is Drake, and people call me M because nobody knows my first name, and it's far too long and complicated to spell and explain my first name. So just know me as M. And I'm a magician, and I do all sorts of tricks. But one sort of trick that I used to do tricks with cockatoos. White cockatoos. Most magicians, or often magicians, produce birds out of hats, and cockatoos are quite good birds for doing this. And it so happened that I was on tour in Australia, and I encountered white cockatoos in the wild.
I was raised in a small town in Arkansas by a very traditional Southern family, very patriarchal. My father looked at animals, all animals, including birds, as dinner, something to hang on your wall as a trophy, or something you captured and you kept for your pleasure, which was very much the way he thinks about women, when you think of it. Anyway, my father generally marauded through the house. He spent a lot of his time killing things, forever coming home with dead deer draped over the hoods of our cars, or the kitchen floor just filled with dead mallards and dove, and I hated it, but you couldn't say anything to him about it.
It just seemed completely incongruous to be using these wonderful birds outside their natural habitat and keeping them cooped up in cages, which you have to keep them cooped up in cages, and then of course in hats and in your pockets to do tricks.
Then when I was about 15, I got a job at the pet store nearby, and I was so excited just to work with the birds because, I felt like I had to fight for their cause. But I got allergic to the gerbil dander, so, I got really allergic. And I had to go to the hospital, so ever since then, I just can't even go into a pet store. Then all through high school, I just became a birder, and I'd go outside and I'd lay on my back, and I could stay out there from dawn till dusk just watching birds. I mean, kids in school would tell me that it's not a sport, but it's competitive. It is really competitive out there.
Mother, on the other hand, basically just disappeared. And when we were little, my brothers, I had two older brothers, and I spent a lot of the time running through the house looking for her, calling her, Mama? Mama? Mama! She just evaporated. We never found her. Anyway, I think the turning point for me was when Daddy brought home a parrot. And he set it on the back porch where Mother spent a lot of her time. She was very quiet, though. And so the bird didn't learn to speak.
I also wanted to be here, not only to show my appreciation for the IBA, but I wanted to be the first to see this bird so that I could get back at some of those characters, those rather evil characters who made my tenure as the president of the IBA kind of a little hellish in controversy over this business of birding.
They really did talk to me.
So I decided to release them into the wild, which I did, and I then became rather concerned about the birds because I wondered what had happened to them. So I went hunting for them to see if they'd survived. At which point I never found them again, but I did find quite a few other birds. At which point I became quite interested in spotting birds. And so started my interest in bird watching. And I have been doing it now for, I think, 17 years.
So the end result was this bird could only say one word that it got from my brothers and me, which was Mama, Mama, and it would just sit on the back porch and shriek these words, Mama. But one day, I guess Daddy wasn't paying enough attention. Mama, we called the bird Mama. Wings weren't clipped, and it flew out the back door, made its escape. So my brothers and I, we were really little, all ran out in the backyard to try to find Mama because we knew she wouldn't survive, and we couldn't find her. We would stand out in the middle of the yard, and it was a lot of property, and we would say Mama, and then we would hear way off in the distance on some low branch, we'd hear Mama.
I started much later in life than most people, and I'll never get a life list, which is a list of birds which you collect, as great as some of the best in the business. But I have amounted maybe 400 or 500 in my 17 years, which is quite good, given the fact that in England, where I come from, of course, there aren't many birds left because we've built up houses and streets and cities and cars and train stations and all the rest of it. In fact, there are more train spotters than there are bird spotters in England now.
So we run over there to the bird, we'd see her, and then she'd go to the next branch, go to the next branch, go to the next branch. We chased her for a long time, and then we couldn't follow her anymore. And as we just stood there, we would hear her way, way off in the distance, you know. We never saw her again.
And of course, I had a personal motive, and that was to see my lovely, lovely old friend and colleague, Iva Jean Burns. And I'm not going to get into some of the details about what happened to Iva Jean, but I certainly in the old days was seriously considering her to be my fourth wife.
They really did talk to me.
This is my life list. Collected about 600 now. This one, for example, really tough one to get. It's really a thrill. You remember every one of them. They're all special occasions. You'll be able to enter it into your list.
So I love coming to the United States. I love looking for birds here. I travel around the world, but I must say probably my favorite place to come to is right here, right in America, and right here on the East Coast, surprising as it may sound.
So anyway, a whole group of us are going to be out this weekend looking, and it's also special because one of my former students, uh, Sparrow Marsh, is coming, and she's going to join us. First time I have been on an outing with her, so I'm really looking forward to that.
I really just, I can't wait to spot it because it has such a personal meaning to me. It has all of us birders around here just ecstatic. You know, this weekend is just going to be so amazing. We're just going to go out there and we're going to find it.
But we had a little bit of a falling out over a little competition in the IBA, and she thought that I sabotaged some of her efforts when really all I wanted to do was win her heart. And she was a lovely bird, too, and one that I always liked to sight.
Of course, Franklin is also going to be there. Francis Finkelman. He and I were teamed together, not my choice, but we were teamed together for the All South Birding Contest, and we would have won it. Except that Franklin mistook a barnyard variety duck for a tundra swan. Well, I mean, not only did we lose, but we were the laughingstock of the entire organization, so that was out.
And I'm very excited, actually, very excited, because this is an extremely rare bird, extremely rare. I can't think of a bird that is quite as has generated quite so much excitement in the bird watching community over the last 20 years. And as for us deprived watchers in Europe, where the Italians have shot a lot of birds, and a lot of species are now extinct because they've shot them with their little rifles.
Sparrow, I am so proud of you. You've taken all that study to heart. This is what it's all about. But Sparrow, once we're in those woods, it's every birder for herself.
There's some people in these woods. They've got these binoculars and cameras and stuff, and they're looking for this bird. Perfectly nice bird, and they're looking for it, and they're creeping around. And I'm make sure that they don't find this bird.
Now the important thing here is to be very quiet. We are intruders in their home, and we want to be as unobtrusive as possible while as I was saying.
Not on my watch. They're looking at him with these high-powered binoculars and cameras, and they're really just being here, invading their space. They're coming from everywhere just to follow these birds around, disturb them, take away their privacy. So I formed this coalition that I'm the president of, and it's called the Coalition for Ornithological Privacy. I made that name up. And if you want to join, you can. I'm looking for some new members at the moment. We got some vacancies. And they're like gawking at him, you know.
Oh, bird, where are you?
Birds are just beautiful creatures, and they deserve to be left alone. You know, they're just in the trees trying to mind their own business, and they got these these humans coming around with their gawking eyes, just invading their space, you know, and it's not right. So, if you want to help me out, that'd be great.
Oh, I do want to get a glimpse of this fork-tailed, full-bellied bunting. It reminds me, they tell me that it's full-bellied like a Goya nude.
The fork-tailed, full-bellied bunting. Truly a remarkable creature.
Okay, well, let's think about this. All right, okay, it's a forked tail, so let's give it a forked tail. All right.
It has a relatively tiny head, thin, delicate neck, and relatively short wingspan.
The wingspan is like 6 feet. It's just massive.
Bunting is like the red and the gray blue of the bunting that was on the 1944 Democratic Convention platform when my father took me to see Franklin Roosevelt nominated for a third time. My father was a friend of Roosevelt's, and Roosevelt called me Frankie. I called him Frank, too, although many people called him Delano.
My great-grandmother's sister, Eleanor, used to tell us about the fork-tailed, full-bellied bunting. She said it would nest at the top of the canopy of the forest. So I'd run up and I'd sit in the trees and wait for it all day.
I called Frank Lloyd Wright Frank, although a lot of people called him Lloyd, but he called me Frankie.
And then it's a bunting, so it's got the high head of a bunting with the little tufts that come out of its back of its neck, and then it's got that kind of like short sort of, it's like, looks like Donald Duck.
It has these swelling speckled breasts that descend into a positively soft, thick belly. And then the creature finishes spectacularly with a tail of glossy black plumage that arcs. It's very difficult to capture with one's camera.
And it's known for the most intricate detail on its belly. It's got these greens and blues that just mix together.
And I called Sinatra Blue Eyes long before a lot of people did that. And he called me Frankie, too. Oh, what memories.
It's rare, possibly because with its tiny wings and its full belly, the creature is somewhat challenged in hoisting itself about. The mysteries of nature.
There's something up on that branch over there.
Now, in the old days, it was about raising the awareness of people, their consciousness, to bring this issue to them. And we weren't so successful. You know, people, they just don't want to listen. They don't want to know about the things that matter. No. So these days, though, we have a little bit more fun with it, and I'm thinking we're gonna get a new member sometime. I'm the only one now, but that's bound to change real soon. We have a lot of fun. We go out there and we go right to the source. We disrupt those people who are the culprits.
It's all very well saying that you got here first, Imogene. We haven't even seen the bird yet.
Imogene, you always want to take over whatever spot doesn't belong to you. Why?
Franklin, for a man who claims such prodigious talent at spotting birds, I should think you could have spotted me here first.
Oh, my dear, I've been spotting you far too long.
sure that those birds get their peace and quiet without all those people gawking at them.
Clarence! Clarence, what are you doing down there? Did you take that garbage out?
Mom, I'm busy.
During my presidency of the IBA, I spent thousands and...
Frankie, is that you? How do you like it, Frankie?
You scoundrel!
How would you like it? Somebody came into your home staring at you. You're naked. They got the binoculars looking all over you. How would you like it?
Yeah. 6 feet for a curlew? They're tiny little things.
Well, not the one that I saw. It must have been a different species than the one you saw.
A turkey buzzard curlew, perhaps. I need to travel to Indonesia or to maybe Australia then perhaps I could get to see some more birds on the list.
You don't know you what?
There aren't that many birds left in England.
There are.
No, well, no, there's people, trains, cars, buildings. No room for birds.